So today we're going to be reading from the first book of Samuel, one of the better known stories from the Old Testament about David and Goliath. Can someone tell me who Goliath was? Yeah, he was a giant, and he was from the enemy of the children of Israel, the Philistines. And David, who was David?
Shepherd.
He was a shepherd boy at this point. And the Philistines were at war with Israel, and Goliath came out, and he gave a challenge to the children of Israel. And he said, if there's anyone able to fight me and defeat me, then we'll go away and be your servants. But if we defeat you, or you send someone against me and I defeat him, then you will be our servants. And he also mocked or made fun of the children of Israel for trusting the Lord. So David came to camp, and it says, David said to Saul, do you know who Saul was?
His brother?
No, he wasn't. He was the king of Israel at that time. Saul was the king. So David says to the king, he says to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with the Philistine. And Saul said to David, you are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are a youth. Meaning you're just a boy. He is a man of war from his youth. So he's been fighting his whole life. But David said to Saul, your servant used to keep his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and took a lamb out of the flock, I went after it and struck it and delivered the lamb from its mouth. And when it arose against me, I caught it by its beard and struck it and killed it. Your servant has killed both lion and bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, seeing as he has defied the armies of the living God. Moreover, David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of the Philistine. And Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. Then he took his staff in his hand, and he chose for himself 5 smooth stones from the brook. He put them in a shepherd's bag, in a pouch which he had, and his sling was in his hand. And he drew near to the Philistine. And then David said to the Philistine, you come to me with a sword, with a spear, and with a javelin. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand. I will strike you and take your head from you. This day I will give the carcass of the camp of the Philistines to the birds of the air and the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Then all this assembly shall know that the Lord does not save with a sword or with a spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. So it was, when the Philistines arose and came and drew near to meet David, David hurried and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand into his bag, took out a stone, and he slung it and struck the Philistine in the forehead. So the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the earth. And so David prevailed over the Philistine and killed him. And there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran over and stood over the Philistine, took his sword, and drew it out of its sheath, and killed him, and cut off his head with it. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. Amen. So David was a shepherd. And yet when he went to see the army and the battle was about to happen, he said he would go and fight the Philistine. Now, we don't know what he looked like, but we are told how tall he was. That he says he was 6 cubits and a span. Do you know what a cubit is? A cubit is this long. It's about 1.5 feet. So if he's 6 cubits tall, that means he's over 9 feet tall. And it says he was a warrior. He was trained since he was a boy to be a fighter, to be a warrior. And David was just a shepherd. So Saul thought there was no way David could defeat Goliath. That there's no way you could do it. But David, he wasn't thinking about how scary Goliath was. He was thinking about something else. What was David thinking about? Do you know?
The Lord.
He was thinking about the Lord. Do you think Goliath or the Lord is stronger?
The Lord.
The Lord is so much stronger than Goliath. So he wasn't afraid of Goliath. And he said, actually, in the past, when I was just being a shepherd, sometimes bad animals would come and try to take our sheep. Remember what kind of animals he said? Yeah? A lion and a bear. And is a lion or a bear stronger than a boy, do you think? Yeah, they're definitely stronger than a boy. But he says, whenever they came to steal the sheep, what would he do? He would chase after them and take the lamb back. And if they attacked him, it says he would strike them, and the Lord protected him. So he's saying, the Lord protected me fighting against the lion and the bear. The Lord will protect me when I can fight the Philistines. Now, one of the interesting things in the story is David uses a sling, which is an ancient weapon that you could use to throw a stone much harder than you could just with your hand. So you would spin it and throw the stone, and that's what he used to kill Goliath. And in the story, how many stones did he have?
1, 3,
Good guesses.
2,
More than that.
1, 4,
Close.
5.
5. It says he took 5 stones. He only used 1 stone. So you might say, why did he need 5 stones? Or if he wasn't sure that 1 stone was going to work, why didn't he take 10 or 20 stones? Now, this is a story that teaches us a lesson about when the evil spirits attack us. Are we stronger than evil spirits, do you think? No. We're not stronger than the evil spirits. So if they come and attack our minds, they try to get us to do something bad, or they make us feel bad, make us feel like we're useless, we're worthless, and there's nothing good that we can do. Or if they try to make us angry, and we feel like there's no way, I'm just so angry, nothing can take away that anger from me. Well, that's kind of true. You can't fight the evil spirits. So if they're trying to make you angry, if they're trying to make you miserable, or sad, or just do something bad, you can't beat them. It would be like a boy trying to fight a giant warrior. You can't win. Even if you're a grown-up, you can't win. But the trick is, we have somebody on our side who does win every time, and that's the Lord. And that's why he chose 5 stones. It's showing us that 5, it's just a handful, just a small handful. And that's saying that, do you need to know everything about the Lord? Do you need to know everything in the Word or everything in the heavenly doctrines, which is like 30 books? Do you need to know all that stuff? No, you only need a few truths from the Lord, and he can help you win. Can you think of some simple few truths that are really important and can help you win when the evil spirits are going to try and hurt you?
Truth.
Yeah, so what kind of truth? Can you think of a specific truth that you know?
Love.
Love what?
The Lord.
Love the Lord. And also that the Lord loves you. That's something important. That's one little truth that can help you. Can you think of any other truths that might help you when you're being attacked by the evil spirits? Yeah.
I shouldn't lie.
Don't lie. That's one of what rules?
10 Commandments.
10 Commandments. Now that's 10 rules, but really if you focus on it, there are 5 important rules that we can keep in our minds of don't lie, don't steal, don't kill, don't commit adultery, don't covet, and those are rules that teach us how to treat each other. So if the evil spirits are trying to get us to do something bad or feel bad, we can hold on to those simple truths, only a few of them, and know the Lord is with us and he can help us defeat the evil spirits. And that those simple truths teach us anytime the evil spirits are trying to get us to do something bad, one of those truths will be able to knock that down if we trust in the Lord and do what he says. So it was a scary thing. It was a brave thing. But if you think about the Lord compared to all the armies in the whole world, who's stronger?
The Lord.
The Lord. And it says, in fact, one angel can be stronger than all the armies of hell if the Lord is on his side. And that's telling about you too, as that if you trust in the Lord and do what he says, it says you can chase 10,000 evil spirits away just by looking at them when you have the Lord on your side. Amen. Hear further the word of the Lord, first as written in the Gospel according to Luke, chapter 18. And a certain ruler said to Jesus, saying, Good teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus said to him, Why callest thou me good? None is good except one, God. Thou knowest the commandments. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. And honor thy father and thy mother. And he said, All these things I have kept from my youth. And when Jesus heard these things, he said to him, Yet one thing is left for thee to do. Sell all, as much as thou hast, and distribute to the poor, and thou shalt receive treasure in heaven, and come, follow me. And from Heaven and Hell, selections from 137 and 229. The power of truth is very clearly to be seen in the spiritual world. An angel who possesses divine truths from the Lord, even if physically as weak as a child, can still put to rout a crowd of spirits from hell, though they look like the Anakim and Nephilim, that is, like giants, and pursue them down to hell and force them into its caverns. When they emerge from these, they do not dare to approach the angel. Those who possess the divine truths from the Lord behave in that world like lions, though they have no more strength in their bodies than sheep. And likewise, human beings who possess divine truths from the Lord have power against evil and falsities. So they have against the serried ranks of devils, who regarded as they are in essence are simply evils and falsities. The reason there is such strength in the divine truth is that God is good itself and truth itself. He created the universe by means of the divine truth. And all the laws of order by which he preserves the universe are instances of truth. This is why it is said in John that all things were made through the Word. Without him was nothing made that was made. But so great is the power of angels in the spiritual world that if I should make it known all that I have witnessed in regards to it, it would exceed belief. Any obstruction there that ought to be removed because it is contrary to divine order, the angels cast down or overthrow merely by an effort of the will and a look. And thus I've seen mountains that were occupied by the evil cast down and overthrown, sometimes shaken from end to end as earthquakes, also rocks clent asunder to the bottom, and the evil who were upon them were swallowed up. I have seen also hundreds of thousands of evil spirits dispersed by angels and cast down into hell. Numbers are of no avail against them, neither are devices, cunning, or combination, for they see through them all and disperse them in a moment. We read finally from the second book of Kings, where Naaman, a leper, came to be healed, and he expected a difficult or challenging consequence or payment. And he's disappointed when he's given something simple to do. Naaman came with his horses and his chariot and stood at the entrance of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent unto him a message, saying, Go and bathe 7 times in the Jordan. Thy flesh shall return unto thee, and thou shalt be clean. And Naaman was enraged and went away and said, Behold, I said, Going out, he will go out to me, and stand and call upon the name of Yahweh his God, and wave his hands towards the place, and recover the leper. Are not the Arbana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Might not bathe in them and be clean? And he turned and went away in fury. And his servant approached and spoke to him and said, My father, if the prophet had spoken unto thee a great thing, wouldst thou not have done it? And yea, when he says unto thee, Bathe and be clean. And he went down and dipped in the Jordan 7 times, according to the word of the man of God. And his flesh returned as the flesh of a little lad, and he was clean. Amen. Here are readings from the word, and blessed are those who hear the word of God and keep it. Amen. And then David said to the Philistine, You have come to me with a sword and a spear and a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." We see the Philistines showing up repeatedly in the Old Testament as one of those enemies that it was very difficult, maybe even impossible for the children of Israel to actually completely defeat. And even after the battle against Goliath, they were continually attacking Israel. But Goliath was the most famous and most frightening and imposing of the Philistines. And it's hard for us today to imagine just how frightening he would have been. He was one of the last of the true giants. And in a world where physical strength won wars, and most people were not warriors, Goliath was someone who had trained since childhood to fight. So in addition to his impressive physical advantages, he was better trained and equipped than anyone on the side of Israel, except maybe Saul or Jonathan, the king, and his son. But we are told, in addition to this, that Goliath was one of the Anakim. And the heavenly doctrine tells us that this means that he was descended from the Nephilim. And these were a race of horrible giants who existed before the flood. And they were not just physically imposing, but they were spiritually dangerous. They had spiritual power against other people. We read, "The Nephilim signify those who, through a persuasion of their own loftiness and preeminence, made light of all things holy and true, namely that they immersed the doctrine of faith in their cupidities." So these were people who were evil. They had such an inflated conceit that they gained spiritual power from that. It's as if their own egos inflated their physical form to that of a giant. And it says that persuasions concerning self and the fantasies increased. And so when the doctrine of faith is added to that, then from the principle of the strongest persuasion, they made light of all things holy and true, and they became the Nephilim. This race which lived before the flood is such that they so kill and suffocate all spirits by their most direful fantasies, which are poured forth from them as a poisonous and suffocating sphere, and that the spirits are entirely deprived of the power of thinking and feel half dead. And unless the Lord, by his coming into the world, had freed the world from the spirits of that poisonous race, no one could have existed there. Consequently, the human race, who are ruled by the Lord through spirits, would have perished. So they had a spiritual power that could actually kill other people through the power of their malicious spirit. Now, we're not told, and there's no reason to think that Goliath had that spiritual power, but he was a descendant of that power, and so his physical form manifested that evil in the world. And we can see that in the way he behaved and the way his challenge and his physical stature terrified the children of Israel, that he was able to frighten them from thinking and acting. They were helpless against him. So again, think about this. The shepherd boy David willing to go against him with a staff and a sling. He wouldn't even put on the armor offered to him by Saul. But David doesn't measure himself against Goliath. He measures Goliath against the Lord. He is only concerned with his own trust in the Lord, and nothing else matters. And we can see this is why the older men, the warriors of Israel, they were afraid of Goliath. And this is why Saul wanted him to use his own royal armor. They knew that Goliath was stronger than them, that they had no hope of defeating him. And in a way, they're right. If they tried to match their strength against Goliath, they would lose. But David said, "The Lord does not save with a sword or a spear, for the battle is the Lord's." So David didn't need to worry about if he could match Goliath strength for strength, because he knew the Lord could. And that was enough for him. And so for us, when we're facing spiritual battles, whether that's temptations or other sorts of struggle, we need to remember, we can't win if we try to defeat evil by our own power. But all things are possible with the Lord. And the heavenly doctrines teach us that it's not merely our strength. The fact that we do not have an infinite perspective means we can't get to the roots of our problems without the Lord. So even if we had the strength to fight evils, we wouldn't have the wisdom or knowledge of how to identify and remove the evils which are infecting us. Because hell can only attack us through the evil that we have inside of us. If we were perfectly good, they wouldn't be able to hurt us. But because we have evil inside us, that's where they find their way in. So even if you think you're facing one evil, there may be tied to some other evil inside that you can't see. And so you need the Lord's help. We read in Apocalypse explained that the Lord alone resists the evils with man by himself and not through any angels of heaven. Because to resist evils with man is a work of divine omnipotence, divine power, divine omniscience, and divine providence. It's a work of divine omnipotence because to resist one evil is to resist many and even to resist the hells. For every evil is joined with innumerable other evils, and they cling together like the hells with each other. For as evils make one, so do the hells. As the hells make one, so do evils. And no one but the Lord is able to resist the hells so united. It is a work of divine omniscience because the Lord alone knows what man is and what his evils are and what is their connection with other evils. Thus, in what order they must be removed that man may be inwardly or radically cured. It's the work of divine providence that nothing might be done contrary to the laws of order, and that what is done may promote man's eternal good. For divine omnipotence, divine omniscience, and divine providence have respect in every least particular to what is eternal. And all this makes clear that no angel is able to resist the evils with man, but the Lord only. And the Lord carries on this work in man, both immediately from himself and immediately through heaven. So it's saying that the Lord alone is strong enough to help us be free from evil. That angels couldn't do it unless the Lord was also working through them. So the Lord alone is the one who can save us from our evils. So, if we don't have the Lord, there's no hope. But if we do have the Lord's help, then we have a chance. But we know, again, from the heavenly doctrine that doesn't mean we just sit down and wait for the Lord to help us or fix us. We can see in this battle, David, even though he has the strength and courage from the Lord, he doesn't just sit there. It says when Goliath gives his challenge, David runs toward the Philistine army to face Goliath. He doesn't just stand there, he runs forward. So we too need to be willing to act. We need to trust in the Lord, but go forward and act as if we were all alone, just as David appeared to be all alone. But let's try to understand a little bit more about who those Philistines are and what that means to face them. Why Israel had so much trouble with the Philistines is because the Philistines represent those who are in faith separate from charity. They were called the uncircumcised, by whom are meant those who are devoid of spiritual love, and consequently a natural love only. Spiritual love is charity. And Goliath, whom David slew, represents the conceit of self-intelligence. So faith alone and conceit of self-intelligence is what represented by the Philistines here. And so Philistia, or the Philistines, were a persistent enemy because faith alone, and with it the conceit of self-intelligence, are a perpetual struggle for us in our lives and in the church as a whole. And so Goliath, he was trusting in his own strength, that he was a match for any other man. He was proud. He mocked the children of Israel and the Lord. And he is a picture of our proprium, swollen by our sense of self-importance, that we know everything. We know all that there is to know. We know what's best for us. We know what's best for other people. It's a proprium swollen by conceit, not concerned with who it hurts, even if it's hurting ourselves. So we need to realize that more than other characters in the story, we should think about being Goliath. Now, we might naturally want to identify with David, who's the hero, but it is Goliath that represents our opprobrium. Our opprobrium, which is a deadly enemy to the church and a deadly enemy to the Lord being present with us. And going back to the story, when we see David, he doesn't use some clever trick. He doesn't use special weapons or special armor. His strategy is trust in the Lord. And so if we're facing a difficult or a persistent evil, we might think that we need some special strategy or some special practice or some special idea that's going to help us win. We need something clever, something tricky, something amazing that's going to help us defeat that evil. And think that that's going to make it what wins. But we see in the story of Naaman, when he came to Elisha, he didn't want a simple solution. He didn't want an easy thing to do. He wanted something hard to do. He thought that the difficulty of the cure needed to match the difficulty or complexity of the problem. So instead of trusting his own preconceived ideas, he needed to be willing to do something that seemed like maybe even a laughably simple solution: to wash in the Jordan River. To trust that this was the right thing to do because that's what the Lord told him. And so David's solution might seem laughable, and even in the story, Goliath laughs at the idea that David could defeat him. He mocks him for even trying. Now again, Goliath represents that perspective of faith alone, that you can learn enough truth that will get you to heaven, or you can learn enough facts, and that once you know enough, you're good. You don't need help from the Lord. You don't need to do the right things. You just need to know enough. That faith alone and trust in self-intelligence. That is what Goliath is. But David is a shepherd. And taking care of sheep means doing something good. Taking what you know and using it to care for others. That's what a shepherd is. Now, this doesn't mean just charity in the sense of loving everybody and being nice. It means using the truth that you have to do your best. And so David defeats Goliath by using river stone from his shepherd bag. Stones are truth. Truth has to fight against falsities. But this truth, and any truth that is a real truth, has to be leading to good, has to be leading to life. So the 5 smooth stones are truths, but truths that lead to charity, especially when we consider that living the Lord's truth is what charity actually means: life according to the Lord's teaching. David's sling is a tool for putting those truths into action. He also had a staff in his hand, which is a symbol of power or effort. And the focus on simply living the truth can defeat some of the worst spiritual enemies. But it requires commitment and effort and trust. So why did he take 5 stones? He only used 1. 5 represents something small or a few. We don't have to have an abundance of truth, just a willingness to use the ones that we do have. In the story from the gospel, Jesus taught the 5 truths that the young man needed in order to get to heaven. Do not commit adultery, do not murder, do not steal, do not bear false witness, honor thy father and thy mother. These are the commandments that are the core of a spiritual life. And then he added one more, which is to obey those commandments and forsake all to follow the Lord, trusting in the Lord, doing those good deeds because they're what the Lord tells us. So David took with him those 5 smooth stones and also a trust in the Lord. So how do we use this in our spiritual battles? If we're in a dark time and it seems like we're not making any progress against evil that is trying us, maybe we've tried and maybe we've failed, maybe we've tried and succeeded and then failed again. It seems like we're fighting a giant. It's as hopeless as trying to defeat a giant. And so in order to win, we need to give up on our own strength. We cannot hope to win unless we use David's strategy and remember who wins the battles. We cannot tackle evil in itself, and the roots of the evil are interconnected and deeply hidden within our souls. But what we can do is focus on doing something, removing some evil. And where we are going against one of the commandments, anytime where we say, this is something wrong, this is against the commandments, identify that and do our best to fight against it, then the Lord will help us. If we do that and keep at it, the Lord can change and remove those evils one by one. And remove them not just in our outward life, but in those deep and interconnected ways in our soul that we're not even aware of and would have no hope of dealing with on our own. We also need to know that hell, when it attacks us, it will attack us through our proprium, our own sense of accomplishment, our own sense of being right, of doing the right thing and having the strength to win. And they'll tell us that it's silly. It's silly to think of simply shunning or stopping one evil would be part of that battle to defeat all evils. They want us to be afraid. They want us to be immobile. They want to stop our hearts with fear so that we don't actually do that one simple thing that will make a difference. And do, as of self, resist one evil, because that's what gives the Lord power in our lives. And we're told in the doctrine of life that this fight is not so severe, except in the case of those who have given free rein to their concupiscences or evils, and they've indulged them from a set purpose. And also in the case of those who have stubbornly cast off the holy things of the word in the church. And with others it is not severe. Let them even once in a week or twice in a month resist the evils which they are inclined to, and they will perceive a change. David's 5 smooth stones represent the simplest essentials of the church, the Lord's commandments, and a life according to them, and trusting in Him to win. When we live according to these truths, it can defeat all obstacles, especially our own proprium. Amen. Blessing and glory and wisdom, thanksgiving and honor and power and might be to our God forever and ever. Amen.